That's 291.6. Let's pause right here for a moment. Let's pause right here for a moment. Whether or not you know it, when you're wrestling for grades at COCC and you're worried about your GPA, what you're really concerned about is accumulating quality points, or these grade points, whatever you want to call them. So the idea is the more of them you get, the higher your GPA, right? Hopefully that makes sense. The higher you can make summation of x, and n stays the same, the larger your average gets and the more your GPA goes up. So it's all about grade point wrangling, trying to get as many of them in. So a B plus is better than a B, and A is better than a B plus. Fair enough? A B minus is worse than a B. That's why I stopped giving minuses out. Now I just do the grade books on straight letters and pluses. I just toss the minuses out completely. Because it helps your GPA. Because I want you guys to not have to wrangle as much. So here is what we've got up to fall 2009. That's what we have to get, 291.6, by the end of our time. The idea is how much do we have to pick up here to get from here to here. So now you see it, don't you? If you just take this, which you know, add to it that which you need, and that's where you have to be, you got yourself a nice little equation to solve, don't you? Yeah, let's go swing over there and take a look at it. Let's go over here. You know what? Let me do it right here in the middle and put the mic back on. Testing, testing. All right. And let's mute this. I think a lawyer built this thing. Take your time, sweetheart. There you go. All right. So you've got 244.95, and we're going to go ahead and call this quality points up to and including fall 2009, plus your quality points in winter 2010. I'm using question mark instead of X. Hopefully you guys are okay with that. Just because we're using X for data, I don't want to use X for another potential. That's not okay, Jordan. I'm sorry, you can use X if you want. Sorry, piss everybody off. So here's your quality points in winter 2010. And then you're going to have a sum total of quality points at the end, which is going to be your 291.6. This is your overall quality points up to and including winter 2010. Now some students might be upset because you might think we didn't use the 69 or the 12 or the 81, because in this equation you might not see those, but they're in there, aren't they? The 69 was part of this computation. The 12 is right there, multiplied by the question mark. And the 81 is how we got that 291.6. So once you subtract off 244.95 from that, you're going to leave about 45 behind, 46 and some change. I'm going to let you guys get the precision. I can do the ballparking. 46.65. So you got 12 question mark equals 46.65. Before we go any further, because I know we can solve that. What are you looking at right now?
Quality points. In order to get your 3.6 back.
In which terms? We are now only looking at winter 2010, are we not? By subtracting this from both sides, we've removed the previous data from the quality point total, and we're left with just quality points from 2010. So you've got to earn that many quality points in order to get your 3.6 GPA. By dividing by 12, that'll tell you what your actual GPA has to be. And what does it end up being, friends?
389-ish. I mean, like it was
3.89?
Almost.
Totally fine. So this student would have to pull a 389 in order to pull the 3.6 cumulative that they wanted to get.
So it's possible, but...
The question was, is it possible? Which is loaded with gray, is it not? That's a loaded with gray question. Is it possible? Yeah. Yes, because the highest GPA you can get is 4.
Okay,
A perfect all A's transcript for a term is a 4.0.
But he needs that at least.
This student needs at least a 3.89 to get at least a 3.6 cum. When the student is averaging 3.55 over 69, almost 70 credits, you have to question yourself, okay, can this student pull a 3.89? So that's the question of probability versus possibility. Yes, it's possible, because the student can pull a 4.0. Is it probable? impossible to answer. It's impossible to answer, right? It's on the least likely element because we're getting away from his, if you will, average. But then you have to ask yourself, why is his average, if he wants a 3.6 and he wants to get this bad boy up, why is his average at a 3.55? Could it be like the student I told you about who had 1 or 2 bad terms and has since pulled back from it? You have no idea, do you? All you know is this student has this many points up to and including fall 2009. If that student had a crappy first term and got a bunch of D's and F's, this student needs to get 46.65 quality points this term. If a student usually got those, say for 5 terms, but in the first term, that first term got 0, it would drive his GPA down into the 3.55 range potentially, maybe even lower. So maybe one bad term throws a wrench in the works. So we don't know, we have no idea how probable it is because we have to see the distribution of data in order to make that call. That's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets tricky, and that's why I don't like it when scholarships and admissions are based strictly on a cumulative GPA without looking at trends. Because one bad term can throw your GPA into a tailspin, especially if you tend to do pretty well. Now, if you tend to suck and you start doing better, your GPA actually starts rising towards it. But if you tend to do pretty good and you have one bad term, your GPA usually harshly gets penalized for that.
So from your point of view, it would be great if they actually looked at all the
Absolutely.
progresses.
I would hope they would. But that's not what happened to that one student I told you about. I need you to look at a median and a mode, and when you look at that, you're like, oh my goodness, the average is highly skewed because he had all these great terms and then this 1 or 2 crappy ones, and the average was heading towards the crappy ones. But you lose that. With this analysis, you lose that, don't you? I didn't give you individual fall 2008, spring 2009. I didn't give you any of that stuff. Just gave you a bunch of cumulative results. Cool?
Cool.
Yeah, makes sense-ish? Somewhere in that neighborhood? Yeah. Good stuff. Weighted averages are wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful because they're out there. And not just GPA. They're pretty much everywhere you look whenever you have to do an average, because very often when you guys are given summary statistics, they're handed to you in group form. We're going to see lots and lots of those as we go through the course together. Cool? Fair-ish? Yeah?
That was a good
You get that? I think those last few, just kind of slugging through those, are a really, really wonderful way of bringing it together.
like a snowball.
Just building on each other. Until you realize, you're like, because what's so confusing about E7 in particular is that you look at E7 and you're like, I don't know how he did in each of those individual terms. How can I figure out anything? Then you realize you don't need to know how he did in each of the terms, only the entire term at, just like in docs. I don't know how much the houses are worth, but in total, they're worth that much, and that's all I need to worry about. So that's the idea of you can still get quite a bit of information from data without having to micromanage the data. It depends on what you need. It depends on what you need. If you need micromanaged data, if you need like a range or a standard deviation, which we'll get into today, this won't do. This won't do without certain assumptions. But if all you're looking for is a sum total, this will do beautifully. This will do beautifully.
You know, actually what distracted my attention from the last one,
Mm-hmm.
because you know, this question mark, it can be the end, that's what I thought, like 120 something. I didn't think about 12.
Oh, like a place value.
Yes, exactly. And I thought, okay, because
Interesting.
you know we were talking about 244, blah blah.
No, I understand.
So
I
it's like
understand.
something,
Huh.
where did he get this from?
I was just trying to use a symbol that wasn't
So
X.
maybe Y, maybe like Y, you know that. So that's
some
why I
other
think-
variable.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to use smiley faces a lot for variables. Like I put like it's just a smiley face in there, and the students don't like that
It
very
can
much.
be still, you know, the last.
For whatever reason.
The last
I get what you're
number.
saying. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Cool. Let's take 5. You're getting that look. Yeah. Let's take 5. Wander around. Flush some air. Pause the camera.